under his administration. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on the vote.
President Trump says he vetoed the defense bill for a few reasons. It would not repeal Section 230, includes the renaming or removal of items in the military that commemorate the Confederacy, and would allegedly limit his military powers. But the GOP majority Senate overrode his veto, 81-13. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has suggested that both parties compromised in making the bill, and he doubled down on Friday before the vote.
We've passed this legislation 59 years in a row. And one way or another, we're going to complete the 60th annual NDAA and pass it into law before this Congress concludes on Sunday.
But the Senate has yet to vote on whether to send Americans $2,000 stimulus checks. McConnell proposed a bill that includes $2,000 checks, a repeal of Section 230, and the creation of an election integrity commission. Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says that bill won't make it. But Senator Bernie Sanders and at least one Republican are calling for a vote on both bills.
So all that Senator Schumer is asking, all that I am asking, is a simple request. Bring the bill to the floor.
And I can't for the life of me understand why we cannot get so much as a vote on these bills. And so for that reason, Mr. President, I do not object. In fact, I enthusiastically support the measures that Senator Sanders is trying to bring to the floor, and I'd vote for them both if we were given the opportunity.
If McConnell's bill were to pass, it would repeal Section 230, a liability shield for social media companies. Republicans, including President Trump, say big tech abuses this section to freely suppress conservative voices and ideas. A number of Republicans objected to voting on both bills. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
President Trump wrote on Twitter that the Republican Senate lost an opportunity to eliminate Section 230. His comment came after the override, but he didn't specify how that opportunity was lost. The House of Representatives is calling for a petition filed by Republicans to be rejected. The petition seeks to authorize Vice President Mike Pence to reject contested electoral votes, and the Vice President himself also says it should be rejected.
The Democrat-controlled House says the court should reject what they're calling an effort to overturn Congress's centuries-old role in counting electoral votes. They're referring to the lawsuit filed against Pence by Congressman Louis Gohmert and other Republicans last week. The lawsuit asked judges to give Vice President Mike Pence the power to decide which electoral votes to count on January 6th, which they say is granted under the 12th Amendment. In a statement, Nancy Pelosi called the lawsuit yet another sabotage of our democracy. The House argues that as per the 1877 Act, the Vice President opens the electors' certificates, but does not count the votes on January 6th. Because of this, they say that the lawsuit has no merit. But according to Republicans, this section of the 1877 Act is unconstitutional, which is why they're asking judges to strike it down. Their lawsuit argues that under the 12th Amendment, Pence alone has the exclusive authority to open and count the votes, and where there are competing slates of electors or objection to electors to determine which electors' votes shall be counted, if any. Republican electors have cast competing votes for President Trump in 7 contested states. They allege Trump was the true winner in their states. On Thursday, Pence also asked U.S. District Judge Jeremy Conoto to reject the suit. The reason, the DOJ's lawyers representing Pence argued, is that Gohmert should be filing a lawsuit against Congress, not Pence. As of Friday afternoon, Judge Conoto has yet to act on Pence's request. Reporting by Grace Coulter, NTD News.
And President Trump announces that evidence of alleged election fraud will be presented during the joint session of Congress on January 6th. He wrote on Twitter, quote, "Massive amounts of evidence will be presented on the 6th. We won big." End quote. This comes after Senator Josh Hawley and at least 39 GOP Congress members have committed to challenging electoral votes. And New Mexico Republicans are accusing the Secretary of State of playing partisan political games. They claim she's purposefully withholding election records from the president's legal team. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
The New Mexico GOP is accusing the Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse, of intentionally delaying the release of election records requested by President Trump's campaign. Trump's legal team filed a public records request with the Secretary of State on December 17th. They're asking for information about Dominion voting systems contractors who might have had access to the voting machines during the election. According to the New Mexico GOP, a poll watcher testified that Dominion had 3 contractors who had unfettered access to restricted areas. The GOP claims that Toulouse Oliver committed to turning over the records by December 30th, but later notified Trump's attorney saying her office was changing the date to January 14th. But GOP Chairman Steve Pearce says that she is deliberately withholding evidence until after January 6, when Congress is set to certify the Electoral College vote. He claims it's because the records are evidence that can be used by Trump. Representative-elect Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the 40 representatives challenging the vote on January 6, told the Epoch Times that they're still deciding whether to object to the votes from New Mexico. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Federal police faced off with a crowd of protesters in Portland, Oregon on New Year's Eve. A riot was declared near the Justice Center in the downtown district.
U.S. federal police declared the riots at around midnight. A large crowd of rioters clashed with armed riot police. Instead of using fireworks to celebrate the new year, they were launched at police officers. Portland police said that multiple firebombs were also deployed by the rioters. NBC reported that some of them threw large rocks, paint balloons, bricks, and frozen water bottles at the federal and also local county deputies during the melee. They also got info from the Portland Borough Police as saying that a crowd of up to about 100 people started gathering at an intersection near the courthouse around 7:45 p.m. local time, and that the gathering developed into a riot. It wasn't immediately clear why the rioters had gathered at the courthouse. Portland was the scene of months of anti-racism protests last summer that called for policing and social justice reforms.
Questions arising about the safety of the new Pfizer vaccine. Some elderly people are reportedly dying hours and days after taking it. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on those cases.
The highly anticipated CCP virus vaccine is rolling out internationally. But a few reports of elders dying either hours or days after getting the vaccine are raising questions about the Pfizer vaccine's safety. In Sweden, an 85-year-old man with pre-existing conditions died of a heart attack a day after getting the shot. In Israel, 2 elderly men died within 2 hours of getting it. And in Switzerland, a 91-year-old man died 5 days after getting vaccinated. According to these reports, both Swiss and Israeli healthcare workers have said that some of these deaths don't appear linked to the vaccine, or that it's highly unlikely they are, citing a history of health problems. Pfizer sent condolences to the family of the Swiss man, but they also said that the elderly and other at-risk people are likely to still suffer from other health problems unrelated to the vaccine. In other words, the vaccine probably isn't going to heal their pre-existing health problems. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, could have offered to pay bounties to non-state actors in Afghanistan to attack American soldiers there. That's according to multiple media reports, which also claim that the president has been briefed on the matter.
China may have offered to pay non-state actors in Afghanistan to attack American soldiers. That's according to media reports citing senior officials. Officials would not say whether the actors include the Taliban. The Trump administration is reportedly considering declassifying the intelligence, which has not been corroborated yet. China's foreign ministry responded by calling the report a smear and slander against China. The news comes a week after Afghanistan busted 10 Chinese spies operating in the Middle Eastern country. Some of the Chinese were in contact with terrorist groups that previously kidnapped U.S. soldiers and attacked NATO forces. In the past few years, Beijing has held multiple secret meetings with the Taliban and officially invited them to Beijing in 2019. British and U.S. officials have previously said the Taliban uses weapons made in China as well as Iran. Officials have also complained about Chinese money flowing into the area. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
The New York Stock Exchange says it will delist 3 Chinese telecom companies. That's to comply with President Trump's executive order that bars American investment in companies that are linked to China's military.
The New York Stock Exchange will delist 3 Chinese telecom giants. This as the Trump administration is asking American investors to stop putting their money into Chinese firms with ties to the regime's military. The exchange said it would halt trading in shares of the state-owned companies by January 11th. These three service providers dominate the entire mobile phone network business in China. Their listings in New York are small compared to their listings in Hong Kong. President Trump issued an executive order in November, barring investment into over 30 companies linked to the Chinese military, causing the company's stocks to crash. Experts have long warned of the risks.
These companies are opaque. We don't know if they're honest. We don't know if they're really making money. One thing we do know is that they're funding money to a regime that is absolutely hostile to our interests. So cutting off funding to the Chinese Communist Party entities disguised as private companies, there are no private companies in China, as you know, is a very important step. And this is a way to restrict their access to capital that they need to survive and that they're using to expand their reach around the world.
Other global index providers like MSCI, S&P, Dow Jones, FTSE, and Nasdaq have removed various blacklisted companies following the executive order. Followers of these indexes include a retirement savings fund for federal employees and members of the U.S. military, resulting in U.S. servicemen savings indirectly funding Chinese weapon makers. American investment also entered these Chinese companies through the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Hong Kong media Apple Daily reported that China Mobile and China Unicom's first 5 institutional investors are all American, holding about 3% of the company's shares. The report says that American investment in the blacklisted companies is estimated to be over $10 billion. Trump's executive order directs American investors to sell these shares before November this year. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
President Trump extends restrictions on green cards and work visas, saying the measures are needed to protect American workers. The restrictions will be extended for another 3 months. President Trump's proclamation was issued just hours before the original one was set to expire. It says the effects of the CCP virus on the economy are still an ongoing concern. At least 20 million people remain on unemployment benefits in the U.S. amid the pandemic. And in Georgia, early voting for the Senate runoffs is wrapped up. The state has seen a record number of votes cast already, but some voters tell us they're still concerned about the integrity of their vote. This as Lynn Wood just filed an emergency petition hoping to block the Senate race. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
Many have called Georgia's Senate race the most important election in American history. A record high number of votes have already been cast for the senators. After early voting wrapped up on Thursday, over 3 million had cast ballots. But one voter at the polls says she's still uncertain that her vote will be secure.
Who trained the poll workers for Gwinnett County? And what I was driving at was to see if they were trained by companies sent in by Mark Zuckerberg, because he sent a lot of money here to Georgia.
She's referring to the hundreds of millions of dollars that Mark Zuckerberg donated to Centers for Tech and Civic Life, a nonprofit which distributed millions to elections offices in select counties. And they gave disproportionately more to historically Democratic counties. The money was used to hire poll workers, along with a variety of turn-out-the-vote efforts. Althoff says she's concerned about whether or not justice will be upheld in these elections.
I've never taken my freedom for granted. I studied in 1974 in American leadership study groups, and we went to colleges, and I was in a communist country in Budapest. And I know, I experienced it firsthand. I just hope and pray, and that's really all I can do at this point, Elaine, is pray that justice will prevail.
And after the presidential race called into question security measures such as signature verification, some poll monitors have been watching closely for the signature verification this time around. Here's what they found. These are photos and videos shared with us from a poll monitor in Fulton County. Monitors are kept behind these barriers, which means there's no way to make out exactly what steps poll workers are taking to verify the signatures. At the same time, attorney Lynn Wood just filed an emergency petition to the U.S. Supreme Court, seeking to block next week's Georgia Senate runoff election. This move comes just days after his lawsuit was dismissed by a federal judge. Reporting by Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Joe Biden's pick for Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, earned over $7 million for 57 speeches in just the past 2 years. That's about $125,000 on average per speech. She spoke at Goldman Sachs and Barclays. Citi paid her almost $1 million for 9 speeches. Hedge fund Citadel, owned by moderate Republican Ken Griffin, paid her over $800,000 for 3 speeches. Citadel also paid the most for a single speech, over $300,000. If confirmed, Yellen says she wants to get involved with issues involving financial firms. And with all of 2021 ahead of us, do you have any New Year's financial resolutions? NTD's Phil Zoe went to New York's Upper West Side to ask New Yorkers about their plans.
We're in Columbus Circle, Manhattan, surrounded by luxury condos and hotels. It's the New Year's, and we asked people what their resolutions are for 2021. Many people said saving and planning for the future is most important.
Think about the future, but you don't have to be too conservative. You have to live, but you have to remember there is tomorrow, and you're going to need something.
So save.
So don't give it all up today.
I plan to save some money, because I have some vacations that I want to go on. So I plan to do a little saving and investing in the stock market and just doing better than I did last year.
You have to save, and you know, I tell my kids, start early, start doing it now, because Social Security isn't going to do it. You have to save.
A graduate student said paying off his bills and thinking long term.
You know, I think being more on top of my bills, saving more, and I think it's really important to start young. You know, I'm a young guy, and start thinking about the long term.
He has a sound plan and hopes to stay committed.
Maybe opening up an IRA and getting into a long-term savings plan. That's my resolution. Let's see if I stick with it, but I'd like to do it.
We asked people to share some financial advice from their own successes.
Maximize your 401k plan contribution, diversify your investments, and don't play the lottery.
To get a house that's stable. You know, and then after that, you can start investing in stocks and bonds. But again, you have to be your own advocate. You have to study it. You know, it's a crapshoot if you don't. And you can lose your shirt if you don't.
Save a little bit every single week or month or whenever you get paid. Just a small part, whether it's 5%, 10%, 2%, but you have to save something.
And more good wishes for the new year.
Take it slow and easy, and don't be so hard on yourself.
Preserve a little money for the children.
Hey, that's one. That's so important. Come on.
And to be happy and lead a healthy life for the rest of my life.
Seems like people are off to a good start with saving and planning for the future in mind. Reporting from New York, Phil Zoe, NTD News.
Up next, New Yorkers have enjoyed unusually empty roads this year. But despite the lack of traffic, car accidents and deaths on New York streets see a dramatic increase. And Beverly Hills is kicking off the new year by kicking out the smoke. Learn about the city's new tobacco ban and more after the break.